On Christmas Eve, she almost walked out poor nervous and convinced he would never stay. A blind date, a borrowed dress, and a single mother's fragile hope. She didn't know the man waiting for her was a CEO, or that this night would change everything if she just stayed until midnight. Snow clung to her worn coat as the restaurant door closed behind her, and for a moment she stood there, frozen not from the cold, but from the fear that she'd already embarrassed herself. Christmas Eve, a blind date, a borrowed dress that didn't quite fit, and a babysitter she could barely afford watching her daughter at home. She told herself she would give it 10 minutes. If he didn't show, or if he looked at her the way men usually did, like she was a mistake he hadn't meant to make, she'd leave quietly and pretend this night never happened. What she didn't know was that the man she was waiting for had already changed the course of his entire evening, and maybe his life. She sat alone at the small table near the window, hands wrapped around a glass of water she hadn't ordered, watching couples laugh and exchange small gifts. Her phone buzzed with a message from the babysitter. She fell asleep hugging the little Santa you gave her. Her chest tightened. Everything she did was for her daughter, every sacrifice, every late-night shift, every disappointment she swallowed with a smile. This date wasn't for romance. It was for proof to herself that she was still a woman, not just a struggling single mom living paycheck to paycheck. The waiter asked gently if she was expecting someone. She nodded, forcing a smile, already preparing her excuse to leave. Then the door opened again. Cold air swept in, followed by a tall man brushing snow from his coat. He scanned the room, eyes calm, confident, the kind of presence that made people straighten without realizing why. When his gaze landed on her, he hesitated, not because of disappointment, but because something about her looked fragile and strong at the same time. He walked over, smile warm. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said. "Traffic was terrible." She nodded, relieved he'd come at all. She didn't know that he was the CEO of a company whose name lit up city skylines. He didn't know she'd almost left. They were just two strangers sitting down on Christmas Eve, each carrying a past they rarely shared. Conversation started cautiously. She spoke about her daughter, about work, about how Christmas was her favorite holiday even when money was tight. She apologized too much, laughed softly, avoided eye contact when she mentioned her ex leaving. He listened, really listened. No checking his phone, no polite distractions. He talked about work pressures, about how success could feel strangely empty, especially on nights like this. As the restaurant filled and emptied, time slipped by unnoticed. When she glanced at the clock, panic flared. "I should go," she said quickly. "It's late. I didn't mean to take up your whole evening." She was sure this was the moment he'd politely agree, relieved to escape. Instead, he leaned back and said, "It's Christmas Eve. I'm exactly where I want to be." Outside, snow fell heavier. Midnight crept closer. The waiter brought dessert on the house. She tried to pay her share, cheeks burning, but he stopped her gently. "Let me," he said. She stiffened, pride rising, but his tone wasn't pity, it was respect. She told him she didn't need saving. He smiled. "Good," he said. "Neither do I." When midnight struck, church bells rang in the distance. She felt something crack open inside her, hope she'd locked away years ago. Still, she expected this night to end like all the others. A memory, nothing more. Weeks passed, then months. He didn't disappear. He didn't fade into excuses. He showed up at her daughter's school play, at the tiny apartment where Christmas lights stayed up longer than usual, at moments that mattered. When she finally learned who he really was, fear returned. She tried to pull away, convinced she didn't belong in his world. That was when he told her the truth. That power meant nothing without someone to share quiet moments with. That success felt hollow until Christmas Eve, when a poor single mom taught him how full a heart could be. The challenges didn't vanish overnight. Life never does that. But they faced them together, honestly, patiently. Years later, as they stood watching her daughter place a star on a much taller Christmas tree, she remembered that first night, the fear, the cold, the 10 minutes she'd promised herself. She realized that sometimes miracles don't arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes they arrive late, sit down across from you, and simply stay until midnight, and long after. And if you listen closely on Christmas Eve, beneath the bells and the snow, you might hear a toothless sound of two lives quietly choosing not to walk away. Years later, as Christmas lights glowed and laughter filled the room, she understood the truth. Some people don't come to impress or rescue. They come to stay. And sometimes, the greatest gift on Christmas Eve is finding someone who waits, even when walking away would be easier.